The President. Questions. Question 1. Honorable Leung Man-kwong. Thank you, President. It is learned that there is no legislation regulating the import and sale of medical consumables in Hong Kong. The sensitivity and specificity of these products for sale in the market, such as blood glucose test strips and pregnancy test sticks, are also not regulated. There are views that the market of these products is like a dollar's coup due to a lack of regulation. With these products varying in quality, members of the public may suffer in health from delayed treatment caused by inaccurate test results. In this connection, will the government inform this Council, 1, of the number of complaints received by the Department of Health DH in the past 4 years about poor quality of these consumables, including rapid test kits, together with a breakdown by the type and place of origin of the products concerned. 2, whether DH requires medical consumables and rapid test kits to meet certain specifications, if so, of the details of the specifications, if not, whether the authorities have considered setting specifications. And 3, whether DH has tested the medical consumables for sale in the market to see if they meet the standard that allow the public to conduct tests on their own, if so, of the details, if not, reasons for that. Secretary for Health. Thank you. Thank you, President, and I also thank Mr. Leung for his questions. Medical consumables mentioned in the question are classified as in vitro diagnostic medical devices. In our existing regime, Secretary, please pause there. There are some technical hiccups. The Secretariat will have a look. Secretary, please continue. Mr. Siu Ka-fai, I think it's something that's heard on the floor If we're quiet, then you won't be able to find the source of the problem. Perhaps someone should continue to speak.
秘書處人員已經處理緊個。
The Secretariat is dealing with it.
局長可唔可以試一試？
Secretary, please test the system. Everything is related, and we are handling it. Secretary, please continue. Medical consumables mentioned in the question of Mr. Leung are classified as in vitro diagnostic medical devices under the existing regime. While there is no specific legislation to require medical devices in Hong Kong at the moment, some may fall under existing legislation depending on the nature and characteristics of the products, such as the Pharmacy and Poisons Ordinance Cap 138. Starting from 2004, the Department of Health has drawn reference to the recommendation of Global Harmonization Task Force, now known as the International Medical Device Regulators Forum. The DH has introduced the Voluntary Medical Device Administrative Control System for short, under which a listing system for devices and traders, as well as post-market monitoring system, are in place. The objective is to ensure that these devices supplied in Hong Kong can meet requirements on safety, quality, and performance. Under the control system, the government classifies medical devices into different classes according to their risk levels based on the medical device classification system adopted by the task force. General devices are classified into classes 1 to 4, whereas in vitro ones are classified into classes A to D, that is, those products mentioned in the question. They're classified into A to D. Local responsible persons of these devices can apply for the listing of their medium to high-risk medical devices, such as blood glucose test strips, pregnancy test, and rapid test kits. Medical devices of low class, namely Class 1, general devices such as gauze, dressing, are not under the current scope of listing under the control system. To apply for listing under the control system, a medical device must be proven to have met the requirements under the essential principles of safety and performance of medical devices, say ISO 13485. The applicant shall submit supporting documents, say, for example, certifications of quality management, labeling relating to the identification and technical description, marketing approval from reference jurisdictions, evaluation report of the device issued by conformity assessment body recognized by the DH. They also make reference of international regional technical standards and international organizations, say, for example, the World Health Organization. A list of recognized standards on medical devices has been uploaded onto the DH's website for better understanding of the requirements. As for post-market monitoring mechanism, the DH monitors safety alerts issued by overseas regulatory authorities and upload the information to its website. And information is disseminated to healthcare institutions, say hospital authority, private hospitals, and professional associations. Furthermore, under the control system, there is the medical device adverse event reporting system to handle reports of adverse events, to collect information for analysis in order to identify as early as possible safety signals to protect the public. Since 2019, there are altogether 60 devices on the list on COVID rapid antigen tests. So far, the DH has received 3 complaints in relation to the quality of in vitro medical devices. All of them are related to COVID-19 rapid antigen tests. The manufacturers are from mainland China, Germany, and Hong Kong. As these devices listed should meet requirements on safety, quality, and performance, the government encourages the public to make reference to this list, that is, the list under the control system. The Department of Health has also developed a thematic web page to provide a one-stop platform on common medical devices such as COVID-19 rapid antigen tests. There is a dedicated web page listing the 60 types of RATs for public reference. It's been very well received. We have 2.1 million click rates since the launch of the website. Well, the website will provide information on safety alerts and the proper use of these devices. The list under the control system is done on a voluntary basis, but the DH is working with public healthcare institutions on how to accord priority to purchase devices listed under the control system. The DH will continue to enhance awareness of the public, users, and the industry on the control system. And the government will review the statutory regulatory regime on these devices and will submit legislative proposal in due course. Mr. Leung Man-kwong, thank you. Just now, in the main reply, the Undersecretary said that there is a one-stop platform for members of the public to choose. And in relation to RAT for COVID-19, there was a search engine to help the public to understand which product meets required standards. But the public will have to do the search. We think that authorities should take the initiative to conduct tests to see which devices meet the requirements. My question 3, asks whether the DH has conducted tests, but I don't see such information from the reply. I would like to ask, in this regard, will the government make proposals to legislate for the control of these devices in order to protect the public? Secretary, we have to make sure that medical devices, especially in vitro diagnostic ones, meet requirements on safety and quality. Apart from checks done by the DH, there are also certifications showing that these devices meet international requirements and standards. When an application is made for listing, they have to provide information from recognized technical standards and to show that these devices are used in other specified jurisdictions. It's just like medications, they have to be shown that they are being used in other jurisdictions and are safe. We've drawn reference from other places. They use a similar approach to make sure that devices meet required qualities. We have done a lot of work in terms of legislation. In 2011, that is in 2007, we were looking into the impact of regulation of medical devices. Between 2011 and 2013, we have conducted business impact assessments. Between 2010 and 2014, we have come to the LegCo to report on the result of our studies. We want to put in place a regulatory regime pre-marketing and post-market. Different stakeholders have different views, especially in relation to users. We have received suggestions from the LegCo. The last government was of the view that there should be a pre-market, pre-launch regulation. First, we are still collecting views, but because of COVID, our progress was slow. Now that we have resumed normalcy, we can restart our work, and in due course, we will submit a legislative proposal. Mr. Chau Man-kwong, we've had COVID for 3 years. There is a lot of attention on medical advices, regulation, storage standards, etc. This is important to public health. Will the authority consider, or whether they have set up system for storage of medical devices. Under Secretary. Thank you. I understand that more attention is given to storage of devices, say for example masks and goggles. Well, after what happened to us in the epidemic, we have looked at the stock level, inventory level of these items. In 2003, during SARS, there was a similar discussion. We had to make sure that there is inventory to last for 3 months in the public system. SARS was short-lived. The review finding was that we should keep a stock of 3 months, but now the epidemic lasted for 3 years. The situation is different. We will review to see how much we should store as reserve. So far, we have yet to reach a conclusion. We will give you a report when it's available. Mr. Yang Wing-kit, apart from regulation on quality of consumables, what about surpluses? Shouldn't there be some regulation? Now that the epidemic has passed, we have RAT as well as masks unused. They will be put in the bin. That's a waste. Will there be assistance given, say for example recycling points, to collect these medical consumables and distribute them to those who are in need? Under Secretary. Thank you. Now that the epidemic is behind us, there will be surplus of medical consumables. We have to talk to different departments on how to recycle and collect these surplus in order to ensure that they are safe and we will protect the environment. We have to conduct discussions on these aspects to make sure that they are properly handled. Mr. Dominic Lee, just now there was a mention about medical devices on the list. You said that the information is listed on a website for public use. Will you require retailers to show whether they are listed under the control system? Under Secretary. Thank you. Putting the list on the website, just like a member has described it, the public will have to go to the website. Well, in order to help the public know that there is a list, apart from giving the information on the website, we also have a requirement on the product. On the medical device, there should be a label with a 6-digit number, HKMD, and then 6 digits. With this label, it means that it is on the list under the control system. Mr. Lai Tong-kwok. Thank you. When we buy electrical appliances, there is the energy label. We can see it at a glance. But the label mentioned by the Undersecretary is not conspicuous. We don't even notice that there are these labels. Are there any ways to step up their publicity? Will they draw reference from the EMSD on launching large-scale publicity campaigns to enhance awareness? Thank you. This is indeed a very good suggestion. We can step up our publicity. The Department of Health can talk to the industry to encourage more devices to be listed, and we also can launch public education to teach the public as to how to identify these devices. Mr. Dominic Lee. I want to follow up on publicity. There are fundings given to influencers as well as district bodies. But still, members of the public don't know how to identify the information to see if it's listed. There is no relevant funding scheme in this regard. Will you consider it, Under Secretary? We fully understand that. Conventional publicity approaches may not be as effective. Well, we're talking to companies in the science and technology park to find ways to step up publicity. You have made a very good point. We should use different ways to publicize the list and these devices. Apart from the influencers, there are many different ways to achieve the same target. We'll take them into consideration as to how to enhance awareness.
Question 2, Mr. Chau Siu-chung. Thank you. President, in consultation, it has been reported that the Mandatory Provident Fund Scheme Authority indicated earlier on that due to problems with the contractor responsible for building the eMPF platform, it was estimated that the overall progress for building the platform would be delayed by 8 months as compared with the original schedule. There are views that the delay in the launch of the platform will directly affect the implementation of the abolition of the eMPF offsetting arrangement and the government's proposal to make eMPF contributions on behalf of employees and self-employed persons who are exempted from making eMPF contributions due to low income. The public's wishes for an across-the-board reduction in eMPF administration fees through the operation of the platform will at the same time be delayed or even come to nothing. In this connection, will the government inform this council? 1. It has been reported that the government has indicated that if any hindrance is encountered in the course of building the platform, the authorities will prepare a simple fallback plan to deal with issues relating to the abolition of the offsetting arrangement so as to ensure that the implementation time for the abolition of the offsetting arrangement will not be affected, whether the government will expeditiously set the implementation date for the abolition of the offsetting arrangement and announce the specific details of the aforesaid fallback plan. 2. Of the specific implementation timetable of the government's proposal to make eMPF contributions on behalf of the aforesaid low-income persons, whether the government will, in the light of the delay in the launch of the platform, introduce a retrospective period for the contribution arrangement. And 3. As MPFA has indicated that the platform will standardize, streamline, and automate the administration processes of eMPF schemes, aiming for a reduction in the administration fees of eMPF schemes by as much as 55%, whether the relevant target will be adjusted in the light of the delay in the launch of the platform, and whether a timetable is in place for implementing the reduction in the administration fees of eMPF schemes. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. President, in consultation with the Financial Services and the Treasury Bureau, the consolidated reply to the question is as follows. The eMPF platform seeks to standardize, streamline, and automate the administration processes of eMPF schemes, thereby enhancing operational efficiency of the eMPF system, reducing administration costs, and improving user experience. The eMPF Authority and its wholly owned eMPF Platform Company Limited have engaged a contractor in 2021 to build the eMPF platform. According to the contract schedule, the contractor is required to deliver the eMPF platform in the second quarter of 2023 for orderly onboarding of eMPF schemes in phases, with a view to completing all onboarding work and achieving full implementation of the platform in 2025. Over the past 2 years, MPFA and the company have been overseeing the contractor's work progress proactively and closely through a multi-pronged monitoring and reporting mechanism. During the process, MPFA and the company have taken prompt follow-up actions on the contractor's work progress, quality, and bottleneck issues, and requested the contractor to handle these issues properly, while making the best endeavors to ensure the timely delivery of the eMPF platform project. However, based on the contractor's assessment, it is highly likely that the delivery of the eMPF platform will be delayed by 8 months as compared to the requirement as stipulated in the contract. Yet the ultimate target of completing the onboarding of all MPF schemes within 2025 and making the platform fully functional in the same year remains unchanged. The reply to the 3 parts of the question is set out below. 1. The Legislative Council passed the Employment and Retirement Schemes Legislation Offsetting Arrangement Amendment Bill 2022 in June 2022 to abolish the use of the accrued benefits of employers' mandatory contributions under the MPF system to offset severance payment or SP and long service payment or LSP. The government has undertaken to implement the abolition no later than 2025 and will announce the implementation date of the abolition in due course. The abolition involves hundreds of thousands of employers and millions of employees. We are pressing ahead with the publicity work, including explaining to employer associations, labor unions, and human resources practitioners the abolition arrangements, and launching a thematic website to help employers and employees understand the abolition arrangements and calculate expenses. The government reiterates that the abolition will formally take effect in 2025 by way of stipulation in subsidiary legislation. To complement the formal implementation of the abolition, the government is actively taking forward the supporting measures. The government will provide a 25-year, $33.2 billion subsidy, that is in 2021 prices, to employers to help them adapt to the policy change by sharing out the post-transition portion of SP or LSP. We plan to seek funding from the Legislative Council in the middle of this year for developing the information technology system for the government subsidy scheme. In addition, the government has commissioned a consultant to study the DSA scheme and will consult stakeholders after finalizing the way forward. 2. The government will implement the initiative of paying MPF contributions for employees and self-employed persons who are exempted from making MPF contributions due to low income after the full operation of the eMPF platform. The government and the MPFA are now working on the details of the initiative. As the initiative involves hundreds of thousands of low-income persons, it is necessary to rely on a centralized electronic platform to process the voluminous data. The eMPF platform can provide centralized and reliable data that facilitate accurate calculation and processing of the government's MPF contributions for the persons concerned. The government and the MPFA will closely monitor the progress of the platform and implement the initiative as soon as possible. 3. Once the eMPF platform is ready for use for orderly migration of MPF schemes, we expect that the average MPF administration fee will reduce by around 30% during the first 2 years of operation, assuming a platform fee of about 30 to 40 basis points or BPS during the initial 2-year onboarding phase. The administration fee will continue to drop steadily thereafter to 20 to 25 BPS after 10 years of operation, meaning a fee reduction of over 50%. The total cumulative cost saving in the first 10 years of operation of the eMPF platform is estimated to be $30 to $40 billion for the benefit of scheme members. Since the target of completing the onboarding of all MPF schemes and achieving full implementation of the eMPF platform by 2025 remains unchanged, based on the assessment by MPFA and the company, the above-mentioned overall cost-saving targets and timetable will not be affected by the current project progress. Thank you. Mr. Chow? Well, from the answer by the Secretary, I didn't hear anything about any necessary fallback plan with regard to the possible delay in the implementation, and therefore we can only wish for the best. Well, if you look at the figures this year, well, for scheme members, the average balance is about $200,000, so it's about 10 months pay for those earning median wages, and that's far from adequate. And according to some information, well, for countries with multi-party contribution schemes, very often the percentage that they can get would be a lot higher than that for scheme members in Hong Kong. And therefore, do you have plans to increase the contribution rate for eMPF? And would you consider introducing a more comprehensive retirement scheme in order to ensure that everybody will be able to have a happy retirement life? Well, your question is somewhat different from the main question. But then, Secretary, do you have anything to add? President, thank you, Mr. Chau, for his question. Well, at this juncture, we are acting in accordance with the legislation in implementing the eMPF contribution scheme, and therefore I have nothing to add for the time being. Yes, Mr. Chen Paul. President, for the contractor of the eMPF, they promised that in third quarter of 2023, they'd be able to hand over the platform so that that can be onboarding by scheme members. And there is now this delay of 8 months, but then they are still hoping that they can implement it fully by 2025. Initially, there was this early bird arrangement to ensure that for service providers, they can onboard more expeditiously, and there would also be a bonus of a very hefty return. But then, for those who are willing to join earlier, will there be any changes in the plan? And have you told the sector properly? Yes, Secretary, or FSTB representative or Undersecretary. Yes, thank you, President. Well, thank you. I'd first like to explain that under the eMPF platform, there has been a delay, and why there has been this delay, and also the impact on the sector. According to the contract, the MPFA and the contractor have promised that there are 3 types of service that they be required to provide. Number 1, software development. Second, construction of the hardware. And third, service and operation of the system. And the main reason for delay was the software development, because for hardware development, it includes the establishment and also the maintenance of the iCloud system, and also the data center, and also the service and operation of the center of the system. And for the second and third part, that they are progressing very steadily. But then on the first part, there was some delay, and 13 trustees, well, out of the 13 trustees, some 7 have already started to make preparation for the migration of data to the data center, and the progress has been quite smooth. And for the 7 trustees that have joined, as you said, well, 5 would be the pioneers. And then for the remaining 5, they would also look at the size of the asset under their management, and they would also be onboarding very shortly. So I'd like to say that as the regulator, the MPFA would be monitoring closely, and they would also be assessing the data migration and also the transitioning to the new platform, in order to ensure that the trustees would be acting in accordance with the law, so that they'd be able to have an effective plan to act in accordance with the requirements of the MPFA. We will maintain very close liaison with the MPFA, and the MPFA and the contractor would also be meeting with the trustees to see how they are doing, and also they'll be assessing the progress. Yes, Mr. Chau Siu-chung. Well, for better return and also lower administrative fees, the scheme members do have high hopes on that. Yes, the MPFA has been working very hard to lower the cost, but then the ratio is still standing at around 1.3–1.4%. And then for those products that are charging less and giving higher returns, they are still not included in the products of the MPF schemes. Yes, the administration also talks about well, green bonds and also other bonds that could also be permitted for investment by the trustees. So will you be diversifying the range of products available so that the sector would be able to provide better service in order to increase the returns and also lower the fees? Well, Mr. Lee, your question is also not related to the main question. But then, is there anything to add from the administration? It's about the fee and also the return. Well, we are talking about the delay in the eMPF. It's not about investment return. But then I'll still ask the Undersecretary to see if he has anything to add. Thank you, President. I'd like to thank the member for his comment. Well, as I said, the eMPF platform would enable us to lower the fee. I don't want to repeat the details here. We have heard from the sector that with regard to the platform and also for future choices of investment products, they do have a lot of views, and we will continue to listen to them, and then we will talk to them accordingly. Thank you. Mr. Dr. Dennis Lam. Dr. Dennis Lam. I didn't press the button, but then your name is here. Okay, Mr. Stanley Ng. President, just now the Secretary's reply obviously shows that the eMPF platform does not have any direct causal relationship with the offsetting arrangement, and there is no specific reason why the two should be linked. At present, the eMPF platform's contractor has already experienced this delay. It cannot be caught up, and there might be further delays. So my question for the MPFA is that, well, the contractor is PCCW, so will they be charging them for this delay penalty? Who is to answer? Under Secretary for the FSTB. Thank you, President. First, I'd like to emphasize, as I said in the main reply, for the full functioning of the platform, that is for the completion of the migrating arrangements, well, the target remains unchanged, that is in 2025. So that schedule has not been changed at all. Right now, the MPFA and the platform company and the contractor are now taking remedial measures in order to catch up. The contractor will have to hire additional staff, and they would also have to increase their efficiency, and they would also have to avoid any further delays. The MPFA and the platform company have also taken some enhancement measures to manage the progress, including requiring senior management of the contractor to attend meetings, and staff of the contractor would also have to be monitored or supervised by the MPFA in order to ensure that the contractor will be more closely involved in the company's work. And also, the MPFA and the platform company have also asked the contractor to engage independent professional advisors to look at the remedial measures to see if they are feasible. So, both the MPFA and the contractor do have prudent confidence and optimism with regard to the schedule of the system being fully functional in 2025. And under the contract, if there is any delay, then the platform company will follow up in accordance with the contract terms, and the contractor would also have to pay the platform company the liquidated damages in accordance with the contractual requirements. But then, of course, we are still hoping that they'd be able to follow the schedule so that in 2025 we can fully operate the system, and then we would also be able to catch up with the delays. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chen Zhenying. Mr. Lee Yen-kwok. Thank you, President. The MPF has been criticized for its high administrative fees, and just now the Secretary said that within 10 years of the introduction of the eMPF, they'd be able to save about $30 to $40 billion. I think this is a piece of good news to the scheme members. But then right now, out of the 13 trustees, they are operating independently, and therefore they would look at their own conditions in introducing different policies and systems and so on, and they do differ from one another. And therefore, there would also be self or optional arrangements for the members and so on. I'm concerned that there might be a lot of problems when it comes to full operation. So during the initial phase of the implementation, if there is any confusion, then that would deal a blow to the confidence of both the employers and employees. So my question is, well, with regard to the outsourced company, will any support be provided to them in order to resolve these initial hiccups? And also, are there any ways to implement the scheme smoothly to ensure that both employers and employees will be able to make use of the eMPF platform more effectively? Who is to answer? Under Secretary. Thank you, President. I'd like to thank the member for her question. Well, in order to tie in with the operation of the eMPF platform and also to make sure that the entire sector and stakeholders are able to understand how it works, we have introduced a series of measures and activities to ensure that there would be proper communication between the stakeholders and the parties concerned. I don't think I should be reading out all the details here, but then I hope that members can be rest assured, because in introducing this e-platform, it's not just for the stakeholders and also the employees and the employers. In fact, there would be some new arrangements that they would have to understand, and therefore we have put in place a series of plans to ensure that they understand how it operates and they know the details. We would also continue with our publicity efforts to ensure that there would be a reduction in cost and they would all benefit. Yes, Mr. Chen Chanying. Well, as the eMPF platform will see some delays, and that is inevitable. So I think it's hard to say whether or not there will be no change at all to the target implementation date. The most important thing is to streamline and standardize the administrative procedures. So is there anything that does not require the contractor's work, so that you can press ahead with that first, so that you can ensure that the plan can be up and running in 2025? Who is to answer? Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. Thank you, President, and thank you for your comment and question. Well, on the one hand, you're right in saying that, the crux of the matter is about the progress of the eMPF platform and the delay. Well, in constructing the platform, other than the delays that have been encountered, there have been a lot of discussions that are still going on. And I'd like to reiterate that the current delay has been caused, and if you look at the contract and also the services to be provided by the contractor, A, software development, B, hardware construction, C would be operation and services of the system. And then for B and C, in terms of the operation and construction of the hardware, the progress has been very good. But then for A, software development, the main reason for that delay was that the contractor has underestimated the complexity of the project and also the need for manpower, and they have now known it, and they have already multiplied their manpower in order to develop the software, and they have increased the team size in order to catch up with the delay. But then for other supportive measures, they are still going on.
Question 3, Mr. Paul TSE. President, recently, some media have uncovered that a Hong Kong citizen, being a public rental housing tenant, purchased a local luxurious residential property in 2019 for $72.8 million with full payment. The tenant then even purchased a newly built home ownership scheme flat with green form status. The incident has caused an uproar in society. Some members of the public have queried how the housing department could connive at that PRH tenant enjoying PRH resources and even allow him to purchase a HOS flat with green form status, which is a double abuse of public housing benefits. The incident also reflects that there are significant loopholes in the mechanism for managing the allocation of PRH and HOS flats. In this connection, will the government inform this council, one, of the number of PRH tenants whose asset situation was randomly checked by Housing Department in the past 4 years, as well as the number and percentage of tenants who were successfully uncovered to have owned properties or excessive assets in Hong Kong or elsewhere? The follow-up work of HD, the number of persons who were prosecuted and convicted after their misdeeds were uncovered. Second, whether it has gained an understanding of the reasons why such PRH tenants can easily conceal their assets to circumvent asset tests, whether it has assessed if the deterrent effect of the existing mechanisms of random checking and punishment is inadequate, causing some people to take chances and deliberately not declaring the assets, and third, whether it will immediately review the loopholes in HD's existing policies and plug them in a timely manner, so as to prevent abuses of precious public housing resources again. Secretary for Housing. President, the Hong Kong Housing Authority strives to provide public rental housing, PRH, for low-income families who cannot afford private rental accommodation. PRH is a precious resource of the community which should be used appropriately and allocated rationally to those in genuine need. The HA endorsed the revised Well-Off Tenants Policies, the WTP, in October 2017. Apart from those exempted from WTP, households who have been living in PRH for 10 years or more are required to declare biennially their income and asset levels and whether they own domestic property ownership in Hong Kong, so that the Housing Department can assess whether they are required to pay extra rent in the future or vacate their PRH flats. Households with less than 10 years residence in PRH are not required to make declaration. However, if HD receives complaints on households having domestic property ownership in Hong Kong, and if such complaints are substantiated, they will be required to vacate their PRH flats irrespective of the length of residence. My consolidated reply to the questions raised is as follows. HD adopts a multi-pronged and targeted approach to conduct rigorous investigations on the declaration cases so as to combat tenancy abuse. In the past 4 years, which is from 2018-19 to 2021-22, HD vetted an average of about 238,000 income and asset declaration forms per year to determine the eligibility of the PRH households for continuous renting of PRH flats and the rent level payable in the coming 2 years. Moreover, the Central Investigation Team of HD conducts in-depth investigations annually on no fewer than 6,000 cases, which include doubtful cases referred from HD staff who are responsible for vetting declaration forms and cases reported by the public. The Central Investigation Team also randomly selects households of different categories. For example, households with tenant change to the next generation and with members deleted, etc., where income and assets declarations are involved. The Central Investigation Team's investigation channels include making inquiries to the land registry to check whether the households own any domestic property in Hong Kong. In the past 4 years, that is from 2018-19 to 2021-22, an average of 690 households per year were discovered to have owned domestic property in Hong Kong and or having total household net asset value exceeding the prescribed limit, which is about 0.3%. According to the Housing Ordinance, any person who knowingly makes a false statement in respect of any particulars specified in the declaration form shall be guilty of an offence and liable on conviction to a fine of 50,000 and to imprisonment for 6 months. Anyone who refuses or neglects to furnish any of the particulars specified in declaration form shall be liable to a fine of 25,000 and to imprisonment for 3 months. In the past 4 years, that is from 2018-19 to 2021-22, there were 526 cases of tenants who violated the housing ordinance by making false statements or neglecting to furnish information in the income assets declarations and who were prosecuted and successfully convicted. Among them, 10 persons were sentenced to imprisonment, including suspended sentence. In addition, irrespective of whether such persons are prosecuted or convicted of the offense, the HA may terminate the tenancy agreement by virtue of its power conferred by the Housing Ordinance and recover the undercharged rent from them. In addition to detection and investigation, publicity for reporting suspected cases and education of PRH tenants are equally important. Since the implementation of the revised WTP in 2017, as at end of January 2023, about 3,200 households have surrendered or had their flats recovered, including those whose household income or total net asset levels exceeded the limits, those with domestic properties in Hong Kong, those opted not to declare, those purchased flats under subsidized sale flat schemes while paying extra rent, etc. In the light of the public's concern about abuse of public housing, the HD will timely and flexibly adopt different strategies and deploy manpower, collect evidence through various channels, strengthen communications and collaboration with various government departments, and enhance the work process so as to obtain key information more effectively and quickly to find out if there is any tenancy abuse. Further strengthen the deterrent effect and enhance the effectiveness of combating tenancy abuse. Ensuring the rational use of public housing resources has all along been one of the important policy directions of the government and the HA. In this regard, the HA has implemented a series of housing policies and measures to combat the abuse of public housing resources. Currently, While there is no restriction on income, assets, or property ownership for PRH tenants who apply to purchase SSFs with green form status, all the family members must undertake to surrender their PRH flat subsequent to purchasing SSFs. This arrangement was put in place as early as in 1978, when the HA first put up the home ownership scheme flats for sale. The objective at that time was to encourage PRH tenants who could afford to achieve home ownership to vacate their flats for PRH applicants who had more urgent housing needs with a view to expediting the turnover of the PRH flats. In fact, in the past 5 years, there were on average some 3,600 PRH flats per year recovered from PRH tenants who purchased SSFs. We are currently reviewing and considering how to tighten the relevant arrangements to ensure the rational use of public housing. Thank you. Mr. Paul TSE. Well, according to the information, all those who make false declarations can only go for suspended sentence. I see that for one, there was one with only 10 days imprisonment, but then with a suspended sentence for a few months. So this is really outdated. On the surface, it seems that it's very humane to encourage people to return their PRH flats. You see that some tenants actually make false declarations for many years, and then to provide them with SSF, it's like just giving them with another gift to them before they leave. Well, we've talked about need land reclamation of 26.5 billion. We're spending so much money looking for land sites for housing. It seems that there are many who do not make true declarations. Many PRH tenants own small mansions on the mainland, even overseas. Have you heard of actually a platform to investigate? You can actually use this platform to make investigations. So the person I was talking about has over 70 million of assets on the mainland, excluding the luxurious property in Hong Kong. So you can see that these people can actually have so many assets. They actually own and can still purchase and subsidized housing. So many people are actually very upset about this. Have you heard of this AI platform, Tian Yan Cha? So how come you cannot also do this in Hong Kong? Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. TSE. We understand that when this arrangement was put in place in 1978, the intention was to provide upstream opportunities and that there would be turnover for the PRH flats. We understand that there is a need to review the policy today. We are currently reviewing the arrangements. As for using big data and AI, we also will explore new technology to see how it can help us. The information in the land registry can perhaps be more easily accessible. Thank you for your comments. We will work towards this direction. Ms. Jovi Chen. President, on one hand, we're actually earmarking funding to open up land, but then we see that a PRH tenant can keep their PRH flat and then purchase a private property and also purchase a HOS flat. Yet many people are still living in subdivided flats. So this is actually a warning to us. It has actually caused an uproar in society. How can we ensure that we can wisely use our public funding? For this case, we also need to actually let the public know what has been done on the end of the government. Secretary. Thank you for your question. As I said to Mr. TSE, we are going to review and tighten the relevant arrangements to ensure the rational use of public housing. Well, everyone has their eyes on this one case, but let's not forget that many PRH tenants have enjoyed public housing until their children are grown up, we still need to ensure that there is a way for them to achieve home ownership through subsidized housing. Well, actually, we're able to recover around 3,000 flats per year. I understand that you all hope that the HA can take a step further to ensure that this system be fairer. As to the details on particular cases, I'm not going to reflect on that. Ms. Doreen Kong. Well, in the paper, we see that from 2018-19 to 2021-22, there are only 526 cases of tenants who were actually prosecuted and successfully convicted. Illegal hawkers also need to be imprisoned for 6 months and subject to a fine of $8,000. How come the penalty is the same for those who make false declarations in housing? Would you consider actually amending the penalties immediately to set out a stronger deterrence? Secretary, thank you, Ms. Kong, for your comment. We have heard your views, and in our review, we will consider all the different recommendations. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, President. The WTP has been in place for a few years. We see that there are actually well-off tenants who still keep their flats to vacant to just put in plants or unused things. I hear from the secretary that sometimes it needs complaints before investigations are made. I would like to ask the secretary, in the tightening of well-off tenants policies, can you give us a timetable? Can you actually kick out these well-off tenants within half a year? And the secretary keeps on pushing out the light housing policy. We actually are in support of the light public housing to help those in genuine need. Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your question. Currently, we do not only rely on complaints. Our team, or our investigation team, actually does a lot of investigation. I'm not going to go too much into details here. Otherwise, some people would try to evade us. I do not want to affect the efficacy. In the past few years, there have been many compulsory testing done, and for those who, when we find vacant flats, then our investigation team would follow up to make sure that those flats are vacant. In 2021-2022, we have received 1,370 complaints, and as to November of last year, we also reached the number of 1,360. We continue to make effort in following up on our investigations. Well, as a timetable is linked to the green form status, we are going to complete a review before the next round of green form schemes. Ms. Elizabeth Kwok. Thank you, President. Our public housing is very precious, and there are many people waiting in line for that. So when people know that some people are abusing PRH and that they refuse to move out even when they own a luxurious residential property, it really seems very unfair. It's unfair to see that some people do not have places to live, yet some people do not live in the flats that they own. And even if they've vacated the flat, sometimes they leave them empty for over 10 years. So the public does not accept the HA for saying that you keep on following up with investigations. For those who make false declarations, the penalty is like imprisonment of 3 to 6 months. But are those prosecuted really subject to such a penalty? Well, I think that for those who make false declarations or who refuse to provide information should be made to move out immediately. They should not keep on staying in the PRH flats. As I know, for PRH tenants, if they own a property in Hong Kong, then they will need to move up. But how about when they own property in overseas or on the mainland? Why is it possible for them to purchase SSFs with green form status? This is actually a double abuse of public housing benefits. Would you actually review your policy immediately? Secretary, thank you. Thank you for your question. Your comment is consistent with other members. We are currently reviewing our arrangements. We will do that, and we are going to tighten up our current arrangements. Members keep on asking about PRH abuse. Well, please do give us the information if you have so, because we will follow up with the investigation. As for overseas assets and properties, we will try to work with our overseas counterparts and then take action in Hong Kong to ensure that PRH flats are used for those with genuine need. Mr. Tommy Chung, thank you. In your review, Secretary, you keep on asking us to report to you. I think you should actually pay those who blow the whistle. Well, if you're willing to pay a small fee for whistleblowers, then I'm sure that you will be much more successful. You wouldn't need to beg for information. Would you actually include this in your current review? Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. Chung. Well, other members have also given their valuable comments. We must consider each comment carefully to ensure that it will not give rise to other problems. I'd like to thank you all for your comments, and we will review it. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, President. In the past few years, I have noticed that those with a white form status will need to go through a means test. But then for PRH tenants with a green form status, they would not need to go through a means test. So PRH tenants actually have a easier channel. This is actually a double benefit as well. Would you consider reviewing such an arrangement as well? Secretary. Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Hong. I have expressed again and again that we would review the current arrangements. Purchasing SSFs with green form status can help PRH tenants to move upstream. Many people have suggested that we must keep this arrangement. Thank you.
Question 4, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung. Thank you, President. There are views pointing out that in order to more effectively work towards reaching carbon neutrality and achieve the interim target of reducing carbon emissions by 50% by 2035, Hong Kong needs to seriously discuss the phasing out of fossil energy and the development or import of clean energy. In this connection, will the government inform this Council 1 of the data on the use of coal and natural gas for electricity generation in Hong Kong by the two power companies respectively, and when the relevant generating units used
will retire, whether the government has stipulated the time by which two power companies must cease coal-fired electricity generation completed. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. 2. Whether the authorities will consider purchasing clean energy from mainland power companies so as to reduce the pollutants produced by power plants during electricity generation in Hong Kong and draw down carbon emissions. If so, of the progress. If not, the reasons for that. Whether they will request the two power companies to dovetail with the relevant plan. And 3, given that the government will set up important strategic electricity facilities, including power receiving and conversion facilities on the land created off Tseung Kwan O Area 132 for enhancing Hong Kong's capability to import zero-carbon energy through regional cooperation, whether such facilities will be financed and constructed by the government or the two power companies, and of the expected implementation timetable, as well as the proportion of the electricity to be supplied by them in the total electricity supply of Hong Kong. Secretary for Environment and Ecology. President, it is the government's long-standing policy to ensure that the electricity demand of the community is met safely, reliably, efficiently, and at reasonable prices while minimizing the environmental impact of electricity generation. To reduce the emission of pollutants, Hong Kong has ceased to build coal-fired generating units since 1997. The two power companies have been gradually replacing coal-fired generation as required by the government. The share of coal in Hong Kong's overall fuel mix for power generation has been reduced from about half in 2015 to about a quarter at present, while the share of natural gas has significantly increased from about a quarter to almost half. The share of natural gas in the CLP power company's fuel mix for electricity generation has increased from about 25% in 2015 to about 50% at present, while the share of coal has been reduced from about 40% to about 20%. The share of nuclear electricity imported from the mainland has been maintained at around about 30%. As for the Hong Kong Electric Company Limited, the share of natural gas in its fuel mix for electricity generation has increased from about 35% in 2015 to the current level of about 50%, while the share of coal has been reduced from about 65% to about half. The government has set net zero electricity generation as one of the decarbonization strategies in the Hong Kong's Climate Action Plan 2015 promulgated in 2021. We've set a target of ceasing the use of fuel for daily power generation by 2035 and only keeping it for providing backup support. We also increased the share of zero-carbon energy in the fuel mix for power generation to around 60 to 70% to help achieve the target of reducing carbon emission by half before 2035 from the 2005 level. The coal-fired generating units of the two power companies will gradually retire in the coming decade or so. We will discuss the specific retirement date of each unit with the two power companies, taking into account factors including electricity demand, stability of supply, and operating conditions of existing units. Hong Kong has no resources for electricity generation. In addition to relying on imported fuel for local electricity generation, CLP also invests and manages the Dai Ya Bay nuclear plant station in cooperation with mainland enterprises through its wholly owned Hong Kong Nuclear Investment Company Limited. Since 1995, Hong Kong has been importing nuclear electricity from Dai Ya Bay nuclear plant station, which currently accounts for about a quarter of Hong Kong's fuel mix for electricity generation. CLP imports electricity through its clean energy transmission system connected to the DBNPS and the power network of the China Southern Power Grid. The government approved in 2015 CLP's 2018-23 development plan, which includes the CETS enhancement project, under which overhead lines will be replaced to increase the transmission capacity. Upon its completion in 2025, the project is expected to provide Hong Kong with greater flexibility to import more clean energy, and the share of electricity imported from the mainland in our fuel mix for electricity generation may be increased to about 35%. The past 2 years has seen a surge in international energy prices. Among the energy crisis aggravated by the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, since early last year, international fuel prices have accelerated rapidly. To stabilize electricity tariffs in the long term and rely less on fossil fuels for generation, we will continue to explore various measures, including enhancing regional cooperation, developing a diversified fuel mix, and increasing the use of zero-carbon energy. The CPG has been supporting Hong Kong to increase the use of clean energy with a view to reducing emissions and improving air quality. The National Energy Administration signed an MOU with the Hon KWOK Wai-keung government in 2008 in support of the long-term supply of nuclear electricity and natural gas to Hong Kong. The Bureau is also actively discussing with NEA to further increase the supply of zero-carbon energy to Hong Kong. We will not rule the possibility of purchasing any kind of zero-carbon energy, including nuclear electricity and all kinds of renewable energy from the mainland, and will also explore the feasibility of developing zero-carbon energy projects near Hong Kong. To meet the future needs to increase the use of zero-carbon energy in Hong Kong, to plan ahead for the construction of new infrastructure for receiving and processing electricity transmitted to Hong Kong from other regions. The electricity facilities to be built on land reserved by government in Changi Area 132 is a strategic facility to enhance regional energy cooperation. It is also important for stabilizing future tariffs and promoting low-carbon energy transition in Hong Kong. It will connect to the electricity supply system of the two power companies of the future and can strengthen the interconnection between the two and the ability of electricity transmission, thereby helping to stabilize tariff and reduce emission from local power plants. In the long run, our community will benefit. The project is currently still in its preliminary planning stage. It is expected to take 10 years to plan and completion, and expected to be commissioned before 2035, and the share of important zero-carbon energy electricity will then have a further increase of 30%. The overall interest of the community tops the agenda of our administration. We'll explore and study various long-term proposals for the development of electricity facilities, while cautiously scrutinizing the capital investment proposals supported by the two power companies under the scheme of control agreements. Thank you. Mr. Kwok Chen-keung. Well, we have a monopoly when it comes to power supply. NT and Kowloon is CLP and on Hong Kong Island by Hong Kong Electric. Given the service involved, the two power companies maximize its approved profits. Hong Kong Island has to suffer high tariffs. It's close to $2 per unit on Hong Kong Island, whereas for NT and Kowloon is only $1.50. There is a difference of 30%. Take a 3P family as a basis. The electricity tariff last year was $100 higher on Hong Kong Island than in Kowloon. So you can see that Hong Kong Island consumers have to pay higher tariffs because Hong Kong Electric is using 50% of natural gas and also 35% of coal. There is no clean energy. Now, Area 132 of Changi will be commissioned. Can the clean energy received there be transmitted to Hong Kong Island so as to lessen the electricity tariff burden on consumers on Hong Kong Island? Thank you. Secretary. As I said in my main reply, Changi Area 132 will have an electricity facility to boost our capacity to import clean energy from the region. The purpose is to ensure stable and reliable supply of energy. If we only rely on a local solar or wind power generation facilities, will rely on the elements. If we can import power from the mainland, then we can have a more stable source of supply, and it can also help to stabilize tariffs in Hong Kong. We can see that the tariffs on the mainland are more stable than that in Hong Kong. So we will cater for the overall energy power market of Hong Kong. So Hong Kong Electric will also be linked to the electricity facilities, hopefully to lower electricity tariffs for Hong Kong Island consumers. Mr. Chang Hek Ken. Now, because fuel prices have increased, and we've seen double-digit increases for electricity tariffs. In this year's budget, the Financial Secretary has offered $1,000 of electricity tariff subsidies, but that is only a drop in the ocean, and ultimately only the two power companies can benefit. To tackle this, we must break the monopoly by the two power companies. The Secretary referred to import of zero carbon energy from the region that is too far away to address the imminent problem. Have you considered the imperial salt you have, the so-called imperial salt, and that is profit control under the scheme of control agreement? You can ask the two power companies to share part of the fuel cost so that we can have an immediate reduction of electricity tariff. This is a weapon you can use immediately. Secretary. President, we have the scheme of control agreements with the two power companies. They will expire in 2033. Now we have already lower the profit cap from 9.9% to 8%. This year we're going to have a midterm review of the two power companies. We will explore with the companies in the midterm review whether there is any way we can ask the two power companies to come into new agreements with us to widen our sources of energy supply, and secondly, whether we can further cut electricity tariffs. I hasten to add here that our agreements with the two power companies as such that any variation in the midterm review must have the consent of both parties first. It cannot be implemented unilaterally by the government, but we'll work hard. Even so, we are working very hard to see whether in the short and medium term we can increase the proportion of power imported from the mainland. Because we've asked CLP to have this clean energy transmission system with Daya Bay Nuclear Power Station. We're asking for that to be enhanced so that the percentage can be increased from 25 to 35%. That is the share of electricity imported from the mainland. This is a way to introduce clean energy, and in the short term, it can also help to alleviate electricity tariffs. But that is subject to our discussion with the two power companies and whether we have new sources of supply from the mainland. We're working on both fronts. Mr. Edward Leung. Thank you, President. In para 2 of the main reply, I don't find that satisfactory because this is about whether we will promote the two power companies to introduce nuclear energy into Hong Kong. The reply only mentioned CLP but not Hong Kong Electric. Now we have more than 1 million households on Hong Kong Island having to pay higher tariffs because we don't have nuclear energy, like Kowloon consumers. So for a long time, consumers in the NT and in Kowloon are paying lower tariffs. Does the administration find it okay for consumers on Hong Kong Island to be bullied by Hong Kong Electric so that we are at the company's mercy? Will the government have any plan to urge HKE to do something to stabilize tariff for Hong Kong Island consumers? And at the same time, we can also reduce carbon emissions. Secretary. President. I am very concerned about the significantly higher tariffs being paid by Hong Kong Island consumers. In my main reply, I mentioned that in Area 132 of Zhang Guan O, we have reserved land for the electricity facilities to cater for the whole energy market in Hong Kong. As asked by Mr. KWOK Wai-keung, will we require Hong Kong E to be included? Yes, that is part of our plan. And secondly, I said that we're going to conduct a midterm review with the two power companies on the scheme of control agreements. We will discuss with the two companies, and of course, Hong Kong E is included, to see whether there is any measure to relieve the tariff burden on the public and whether we can have more energy supply from the mainland to stabilize tariffs and to benefit the community. We're going to discuss with the two power companies, but then we cannot preempt details or disclose details of our discussion before we've done that with the two power companies. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, President. The Secretary said that we are subject to a surge in international energy prices, and therefore I'm of the view that the administration has the responsibility to monitor the fuel mix by the two power companies. Hong Kong E is still using 50% of its fuel mix with coal. Now, we've also got the midterm review of the scheme of control agreements with the two power companies coming up this year. Now, will the administration in the investment plan of the two power companies further ask for an increased use of clean fuel in their fuel mix? Thank you, President. Our objective is to ensure we meet energy demand of the community in a safe, reliable, and efficient manner and at reasonable prices. Yes, it has always been our objective to require the two power companies to use clean fuel. And of course, we have the price consideration. If we build a large amount of renewable energy facilities in Hong Kong, like windmills and other types of high-tech power generation facilities, I'm afraid that in the short term this is going to pressurize our tariff levels. So a better approach is to increase the import of clean fuel from the mainland. This can be implemented more speedily, and secondly, there will be positive impacts on tariffs. It will not make electricity more expensive. So in the short term, that will be our position in discussion with the power companies and also relevant authorities in the mainland. Mr. Luk Chung Hong. Now, Mr. KWOK Wai-keung's question is about environmental protection and high tariffs. Now, the two power companies like to charge a few costs, and they may offer a little bit of rebate to play generous. Now, I am all for importing zero carbon fuel from the mainland for a better environment and to lower tariffs. Now, I think the Secretary is in a very passive position. Things can only change if the two power companies are willing to do so in the midterm review. Now, why don't we have since we have a larger cable to import electricity from the mainland. Now, in addition to supplying electricity to two power companies on the future artificial islands, electricity can be supplied to the artificial islands directly from the mainland. This will force the power companies to lower tariffs and introduce measures to lower tariffs as well. Secretary, thank you, Mr. Luk, for your questions. We'll see how we can increase the sources of electricity supply from the mainland. And we're also seeing how, under the current mechanism, we can introduce competition. We do believe the competition will help to stabilize tariffs in Hong Kong. So, for sure, during the midterm review, or when we have new development areas in Hong Kong, we will study the possibility of introducing competition in the energy market. Mr. Chen Yue-ming, thank you, President. In 2017, the administration renewed the small house policy. Small houses in NT can have their photovoltaic panels, and then through the feed-in tariff and the power company's grid, power can be fed in. Now there are more and more applications, but then the progress is slow. There are people who would like to have the photovoltaic cells on rooftops, but they encounter challenges because of the limited capacity of the power grid. As a result, in a village, not too many village houses can participate in the scheme. That would affect the stability of supply, they claim. Now, in order to achieve carbon neutrality and reduce emission as soon as possible, my question is, will the government enhance the capacity of grids in the rural areas so that the community can participate more in this scheme? Thank you. Yes, we have introduced a feed-in tariff scheme with the two power companies to promote renewable energy. The two power companies undertook to boost the supply of electricity to the participants involved. Now, if there are specific cases, do let us have them, and we'll follow up to see whether there are reasons for the difficulty in boosting power capacity. Thank you.
Question number 5, Mr. Kenneth Leung. Thank you, Mr. President. The report to the 20th National Congress of the Communist Party of China puts forward acting on the principle that lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets, stronger ecological conservation and environmental protection across the board in all regions and at all times, and promoting harmony between humanity and nature. On the other hand, the Hong Kong SAR government has introduced, among others, a new conservation policy and the biodiversity strategy and action plan to set up nature conservation. There are views pointing out that enhancing the awareness of nature or natural ecology conservation among the young generation is an important aspect of the policy. In this connection, will the government inform this Council 1 of the work of the Environment and Ecology Bureau and related government departments on enhancing students' and youth's understanding of nature conservation through education activities and encouraging their participation in nature conservation, as well as the effectiveness of such work? 2. Given that the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau and the former Home Affairs Bureau organized in the past quite a number of thematic youth internship programs to the mainland that were related to conservation, such as youth internship program at Wolong National Nature Reserve, Sichuan, youth internship program on biodiversity and conservation in Wuyishan, and youth internship program at Shandong on marine sciences, of the effectiveness of such internship programs and whether the government will expeditiously resume the organization of such programs and increase the number of places so as to provide more youth with opportunities of exchange and internship in respect of conservation. And 3, as there are views that giant pandas given by the central authorities as gifts to Hong Kong on 2 occasions have all along been an important means which enables Hong Kong young people to learn about the natural ecology of the motherland and deepens their awareness of environmental conservation and protection of rare wild animals. And as there is currently 1 pair of giant pandas remaining in Hong Kong, whether the authorities will consider requesting the central authorities to send an additional pair of giant pandas in Hong Kong and set up work on promoting conservation among young people to enhance their understanding of the country's ecology, of the details, if not the reasons for that. Secretary. Mr. President, nature conservation and biodiversity are indispensable to sustainable development of our society. As stipulated in the report of the 20th National Congress of our country, the nature provides the basic conditions for human survival and development, and we must maintain harmony between humanity and nature when planning our development. Hong Kong has a variety of marine and terrestrial habitats nurturing a biodiversity which is very rich in this small place. The government attaches great importance to protecting Hong Kong's precious natural ecology, of which about 40% of the land has been designated as country parks and special areas, comparing well with many other cities with a similar level of economic development. The government has been enhancing public education and publicity on nature conservation in order to cultivate an awareness among younger generations on protecting the nature, thereby ensuring continuity of our conservation work. Having consulted the Education Bureau, Home and Youth Affairs Bureau, and Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau, my consolidated reply to the three parts of the question raised by Mr. Kenneth Leung is as follows. 1. The government proactively provides opportunity for young people to enhance their knowledge and skills on nature conservation, as well as developing good values. Regarding school curricula, environmental conservation has been incorporated in the curricula of subjects including general studies of primary schools, as well as geography, citizenship and social development, science and technology education of secondary schools. On teaching resources, the government has rolled out the long-term decarbonization e-learning platform and the curriculum-based outdoor learning programs in country parks, providing materials that assist teachers and students to learn about conservation of natural environment. The government also supports schools in implementing diversified educational activities. For instance, the AFCD conducts country park-themed school visits, which were attended by a total of about 17,000 students in 2022. The Environment and Ecology Bureau, with the support of Environmental Campaign Committee, has also launched the Student Environmental Protection Ambassador Scheme and the Green Prefect Program, providing students with training related to nature conservation, as well as various opportunities to gain practical experience, such as field trips, coastal conservation and cleaning. In the 2022-23 school year, more than 400 schools have participated in the two programs. On education outside schools, the AFCD operates various volunteer ambassador programs in Hong Kong, wetland park, country parks, marine parks, giving opportunities for nature lovers, including young people, to participate in the management of parks and nature conservation work. The AFCD also organizes various public education activities regularly, such as hiking and planting day, guided tours of the nature, game booths, workshops, photo and drawing competitions, roving exhibitions, hiking, etc. In 2022, a total of about 200,000 people participated in the public education activities, many of whom were young people. The department also supports non-profit-making organizations to organize education programs on biodiversity through the subventions for biodiversity education. The amount of subvention involved has reached $8.7 million so far, attracting about 50,000 people to participate in the relevant activities. There were positive feedback and active participation from schools and young people. The government will continue to enhance the education and promotion on nature conservation with a view to further raising young people's awareness towards nature conservation. 2. The Youth Development Blueprint released by the HYAB earlier stated that the government would further promote young people's understanding of our country and the world. This includes pushing ahead with the thematic youth internship programs to the mainland in collaboration with cultural and scientific research institutions in the mainland. The thematic programs organized in the past included youth internship at Hon LEUNG National Nature Reserve, Sichuan, Youth Internship Program at Shandong on Marine Sciences, and Youth Internship Program at Wuyishan on Biodiversity Conservation. These three programs achieved notable results by providing internship opportunities relating to nature conservation to over 80 Hong Kong youths from 2017 to 2019. The programs strengthened the young people's understanding of nature conservation, marine science, and biodiversity conservation, and helped nurture their talents and passion to develop career in the relevant fields in the future. With the resumption of normal travel between Hong Kong and the mainland, the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau is resuming various exchange and internship programs in a gradual and orderly manner, including the Youth Internship Program at Wolong National Nature Reserve, Sichuan, this summer. In addition, we're working closely with other work units to actively explore the possibility of organizing more thematic programs this summer, and the details will be announced later. 3. Hong Kong is home to a pair of adorable giant pandas, Ying Ying and Lele. They have always played an important role in promoting our country's ecology and conservation culture, representing the connection between our country and Hong Kong and providing young people with an avenue to deepen their understanding of our motherland. Now, as for negotiating with the central government to give an additional pair of giant pandas to Hong Kong, the government will consider this proposal and will announce in due course if there is any further information. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth LEUNG. Mr. President, recently, according to media reports, because of insufficient care for the giant panda living in the United States, the community has shown concerns. We have the experience of nature conservation, in particular in relation to aged giant pandas in Hong Kong. Has the government considered making good use of our resources and our experience and discuss with the National Giant Panda Research Institute to make Hong Kong a base for providing research support and foster collaboration with overseas counterparts on the conservation of giant pandas so as to enhance young people's awareness on nature conservation? Secretary. Mr. President, in 1999, the Hong Kong SAR government was given as a gift the first pair of giant pandas from the central authorities. And back then, the Wolong National Nature Reserve in Sichuan Management Authority became the designated organization to provide support. Now, as far as the keeping of the giant pandas is concerned, together with reproduction, it is a complex issue that requires different support and experience. For example, after the giant pandas arrived in Hong Kong, we made attempts for them to reproduce offsprings, and we signed an agreement with the management authority of the National Nature Reserve in Wolong. Despite efforts from both sides, no offspring was produced. And then we sent specimens of semen to Sichuan for the purpose of reproduction to no avail. So this is a rather complex issue. Now, as for Hong Kong, we have not yet built the necessary prerequisites to become a base, but we will continue to foster exchange with the national institution so that we can make improvements on the keeping of giant pandas and to make further contributions to the country's nature conservation efforts. Mr. Ma Fung Kwok. I think we can have more youth internship programs at different places such as highlands and rivers and streams. But I also agree that this is no easy task. My question is this: how can we make these youth internship programs more impactful so that participants can share their experience with their peers? I want to know whether there is any follow-up arrangement for young participants of these youth internship programs to go on a tour and share their experience with their counterparts. Who would like to take the question, please? Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Ma, for the questions. At this stage, after the completion of each thematic program, An experience sharing session will be held for young participants to share their experience and their observations with their peers. Publicity clips will also be prepared, and the Bureau will also invite participants to share their experience in school talks, as well as the seminar of the next youth internship program. In fact, in the last seminar, we invited interns in the youth internship of marine at Shandong on marine sciences to share their experience at the seminar on marine conservation. Our Bureau will enhance the youth internship programs, as I mentioned just now, and allow the sharing of experience by more young participants. Mr. Stephen Ho. Well, the Secretary seems to be very concerned about nature conservation. Well, we have lucid waters and lush mountains, but I don't think the lucid waters and lush mountains in our country are the same as those in Hong Kong, because we have the mudskippers being the mudskipper's habitat being harmed by other species. Now, I'm talking about the protection of endangered species in CAP 586 and the other piece of legislation. These two pieces of legislation are in charge of biodiversity. And in our country, recently, another piece of legislation was promulgated involving 455 protected species and also 401 Tier 3 species. So about the protection of endangered species, I want to know whether we are sharing the same focus as that in the mainland. Is there sufficient publicity on the part of the government? And for other species, very often we have only the name but not photos. For example, we have plant species with different names, an Indian species, and frankly, I have no idea what they look like, not to mention any publicity at all. Secretary. Mr. President, I thank Mr. Stephen Ho for his questions. There are many species around the world. Many of those are valuable and endangered species. Different places have different policies. We also have a list in Hong Kong. The list is subject to regular updates. The AFCD on a regular basis updates the list, in other words, with reference to, for example, international list of protected and endangered species and the country's list and our country's list. And we may have a different focus because of the species that can be identified in Hong Kong and not elsewhere. As for a picture book with the names and photos of species, and you talked about not having sufficient information in this regard, we have a central conservation database for the purpose of conducting environmental impact assessments, and species identified locally and elsewhere are maintained in this database as a result of EIAs conducted locally and elsewhere. This database is actually available for public access online. Mr. Stephen Ho also referred to another question on public education and publicity. The AFCD has devised a set of teaching resources with the education university, targeting primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. There are different topics such as biodiversity, trees, insects in Hong Kong, geological and topographical situations in Hong Kong, etc., with a view to promoting education in schools. There are also other plans. We make use of country parks and other schemes to promote nature conservation among young people. We also have visits, and I note your comments. We will enhance publicity. Mr. Duncan Chiu. Mr. President, thank you. In order to enhance young people's awareness of nature conservation, you need to give them first-hand experience. It is of utmost importance. We have different cities with different sceneries in our country, and according to the administration's reply, we have different youth internship programs to Wuyishan, to Wulong, and to Shandong. However, the number of participants are limited. These are faraway places. Will the government consider nature conservation work in Guangdong province? There are over 20 such nature conservation parks in Guangdong province. And in 2025, another national park called Nanling will be commissioned in Foshan. We also have other cultural resources in Guangdong province, such as martial arts in Wing Chun in Foshan, etc. And a short tour will allow young participants to know more about our country's culture and cultural and natural aspects. So will these programs be organized? Who will take the question, please? Under Secretary for Home and Youth Affairs. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Chiu, for his questions. On youth internship programs, our country has vast natural resources, and our country has been promoting nature conservation. And young people have shown keen interest in thematic programs relating to nature conservation. We take a proactive approach in approaching authorities in Guangdong province and other provinces to see if more nature conservation related internship programs can be organized. But of course, we need to have a regard to the capacity of these places, because we collaborate with the state level research institutions, and we have a one-to-one matching basis. We will continue to strive for more internship opportunities for young people interested in nature conservation. The member also mentioned whether more young people can take part in more experience programs, one-day tours for the purpose of exchange. And in fact, our bureau has just launched a mainland exchange program for youths, the deadline of which is actually this month, or the end of this month. More youth exchange tours will be organized. And I believe proposals will be coming in, and many of them will be based on themes relating to nature conservation.
Last question seeking an oral reply, Dr. David LAM. Thank you. Their views pointing out that an automated external defibrillator, that is AED, must be used as quickly as possible when cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, is administered, and therefore whether an AED can be readily located and used is crucial to the effectiveness of CPR. The Hong Kong Fire Services Department, or FSD, launched the AED Anywhere for Anyone program, or the program, in June 2021, with the aim of popularizing the installation and use of AEDs in the community. However, it is learned that even though the program has been implemented for more than 1.5 years, a large number of government venues, for example, post offices, estate offices under the Housing Authority, or community halls, have not yet been installed with AEDs. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, of the respective numbers of additional AEDs which have been installed across the territory and in various districts since the launch of the program, and whether members of the public can locate all AEDs which are available for public use through FSD's online information platform, centralized AED registry for emergency. 2, whether it will set an indicator for the installation of AEDs at reasonable intervals in public places. And 3, whether it has plans to continuously educate members of the public about using AEDs, for example, broadcasting announcements in the public interest and review in a timely manner the implementation, progress, and effectiveness of such plans. If so, of the details, if not, the reasons for that. Thank you, President. Secretary for Security. President, to enhance the community's awareness, capabilities and supporting measures of emergency preparedness, the Fire Services Department, or FSD, has been making vigorous efforts to formulate and implement strategies on community emergency preparedness and organize educational and promotional activities in the community. Administration of CPR in conjunction with the use of an AED is the most effective way to rescue a cardiac arrest patient. AEDs are easy and simple to use. They are equipped with a built-in computer to analyze patient's condition. By following the instructions of an AED, anyone can help restore a patient's heartbeat to normal. In recent years, there is an internationally adopted view that even a layperson with no relevant training is able to rescue cardiac arrest patients using AED. The FSD has been actively exploring ways to improve accessibility of AEDs for public use in a bid to enhance the efficiency of life-saving treatment. The department launched the AED Anywhere for Anyone, or the AAA program, in June 2021, which aims to increase the number of AEDs across the territory that can be readily accessed by the public, and to enhance people's awareness and capabilities in using an AED in case of emergency, so that they will be able to administer defibrillation to cardiac arrest patients. Information about AEDs under the program, including the locations, is available at the FSD's online information platform, Centralized AED Registry for Emergency, or CARE, to facilitate public access. The FSD has in parallel implemented community education programs on CPR and AED with a view to enhancing the people's understanding of the whole rescue process and boosting their confidence and efficiency in carrying out rescue. The FSD has also put emphasis on the promotion of the concept anyone can use an AED, encouraging the public to make the best use of the time before the arrival of ambulance crew to perform first aid on the patients by following the post-dispatch advice instantly and concurrently provided by personnel of the Fire Services Communications Center and by making use of the nearby AEDs. By implementing the above measures, the FSD aims to create a social atmosphere that will foster the culture of self-help and help others in the wider community, and at the same time promote the installation of AEDs by various organizations, making the device readily accessible anywhere by anyone. My reply to the question raised by the member is as follows. 1. Concerning the number of AEDs and online platform. Since the launch of the AAA program, there are over 160 participating public and private organizations. As of March 2023, the CARE platform has incorporated the details of over 1,700 AEDs spreading among 18 districts, with over 400 in Hong Kong Island, 490 in Kowloon, and nearly 820 in the New Territories and outlying islands. The FSD has taken the lead by installing AEDs outside over 100 fire stations and ambulance depots across the territory when launching the above program. The department has also put up an AED sign on over 600 FSD vehicles equipped with an AED. AEDs are now available at a number of places across the territory, including government buildings and offices, medical institutions, theme parks, schools, large shopping malls, private housing estates, commercial buildings, nursing homes, etc. The FSD has all along encouraged and helped relevant organizations to install AEDs and make them available to the public for use in case of emergency. Apart from the above-mentioned 1,700 AEDs, we know that there are AEDs installed by other organizations in the community. On top of stepping up the promotion of installing AEDs in government departments, the FSD is actively encouraging these organizations to provide information about the AEDs on the CARE platform. The department will also continue to identify other associated supporting measures or options for cooperation. When the number of participating organizations have grown and the public's awareness, expectation, and capabilities in respect of the availability and use of AEDs in the community have gradually increased, it will promote the social atmosphere, promoting more organizations to participate in the program. 2. On the intervals. At present, there is yet to be a uniform international standard on the interval or density of AED coverage in public places. However, there is a general recommendation from various organizations that there should be an AED available within a 3 to 5 minute round-trip walking distance from where the patient is. The FSD also recommends to participating organizations that as a target. 3. The FSD has been making vigorous efforts to plan and carry out educational and promotional activities related to community emergency preparedness and promoting the 3 basic skills of emergency preparedness, which are namely extinguish and prevent fire, self-help and help others, and escape and evacuate. The use of AED and CPR falls under self-help and help others. Educational and publicity work have been carried out through television and radio, as well as distribution of promotional leaflets. There are also courses and lectures in school campus, and the community. To enhance community emergency preparedness, the FSD has also made rigorous efforts to reach out to different age and community groups through social media, online platforms, and so on. The FSD has been conducting timely review on the progress and effectiveness of educational and publicity efforts using statistics from various media platforms. Up to this date, the relevant educational and promotional activities have reached over 1 million people. We will seek to extend the coverage, penetration, and continuity of publicity and educational efforts by referencing to the review findings. As a next step, the FSD will focus on promoting the simplicity in the use of AEDs to convey to the public the message that even a layperson with no training can save life by using an AED as long as he or she dares to do so. Looking forward, the FSD will keep up its efforts in broadening AED coverage and strengthening the public's awareness and capabilities of emergency preparedness by a multi-pronged approach to better prepare people for dangerous or emergency situations, hence providing better protection to the lives of the people of Hong Kong. Thank you, President. Dr. David LAM. President, I thank the Secretary for his reply. In fact, the intervals target of within 3 to 5 minutes round-trip walking distance and also 1,700 AED machines, these are encouraging figures. You have to consider the scenario when you see someone who is a stranger to you faint on the street. The bystander will be very nervous and he or she may not know where to find an AED. I have the care platform open on my mobile phone. The nearest AED is at the office of Mr. Edmund Wong. There is no AED within this building. Now, what if Mr. Wong is not at his office? Then we cannot access his AED. The care platform is very useful and it is very helpful, but it is questionable whether the public know how to use it. And also, the opening hours of the premises where the AED is located in is also a concern. The CGO, the Central Government Office, will not open at certain hours. However, there may be cardiac arrest patients at any time. Maybe the government can consider collaborating with convenience stores across the territory. AEDs should be placed in convenience store and suppliers should be responsible for its maintenance and a sign should be put up. Mr. David Lam, you have asked several questions. Let's hear from the Secretary. President, I thank the doctor for his follow-up questions. Concerning the care platform for AED, the information is not limited for public users. There are also information concerning AEDs placed at locations only accessible by staffers. Of course, we can always improve the care platform. As a next step, the FSD will continue to improve the care platform. When there are cardiac arrest cases, you should call 999 immediately. The Fire Services Communications Center will issue post-dispatch advice to the caller before the ambulance arrives. Thank you. Ms. Lam So Wai. Thank you, President. the FSD has been offering free training courses for the public to use AEDs and apply CPR. My question is, we will have community care teams in the 18 districts. Will the FSD collaborate with the 18 care teams to promote the use of AEDs on a community level rather than asking people to go to Park Shin-kok to learn? Secretary, thank you. Concerning AED, AED can be used by any layperson without training. Of course, it would be more desirable if the user has been trained. On this front, we will continue to liaise with stakeholders, including the organizations and care teams mentioned by the member. I will discuss whether we can collaborate with care teams with the HYAB. Mr. Chan Shi-hong, thank you. Since the program has been launched, more than 180 private and public participants have joined, and there are 1,700 AEDs spreading among the 18 districts. Despite the stepped-up publicity efforts, a lot of public and private organizations do not have AEDs within their premises. Even if they do, the information of these AEDs have not been uploaded to the CARE platform. The Secretary said he would encourage these organizations to upload these information to the CARE platform. So what is the reason behind the fact that some organizations are unwilling or haven't uploaded the information of the AEDs to the CARE platform? Because this has undermined the coverage of AEDs in Hong Kong. Secretary, different organizations have different considerations. Some AEDs are only available for use by employees within the organization's premises. And because of privacy, some organizations are not willing to disclose the locations of the AEDs. As the next step, we will encourage different organizations to make available the locations of the AEDs on the platform. We emphasize that the AEDs may not be necessarily for the public use. Say, for example, in LCSD venues, we have AEDs, same for some police stations. When the need arises, police officers can use AEDs to perform CPRs. Ms. Judy Chan. Now, the CARE platform is very useful. Various organizations have made available the locations of the AEDs on the platform. Now, the Secretary said some venues under the management of LCSD were not covered by the CARE platform. However, LCSD venues may be the place where AEDs are most needed. So can you give us a timetable when all government departments will make available the information regarding the AEDs on the platform? And will the government launch an app for easy finding of the AEDs? Secretary, we understand that there is room for improving the platform. Some users told us that if you are using certain models of mobile phone, you can do a search on the CARE platform, but the locationing service will not be available. We are following up on that. Concerning organizations, there are educational organizations, property management organizations, or even social welfare organizations who are participants of the platform. Of course, we are promoting the CARE platform internally. We encourage departments to improve the positioning of the AEDs and upload the locations to our platform. Thank you. Mr. Edmund Wong. Thank you, President. In Singapore, there is a similar app that is Save a Life. There are 3 steps. First, the locationing service will help you find the AED, and also second, it will help a train up community first responders. The first step is to launch the Community First Responder app to allow crowdsourcing of lifesavers. Now, when dispatchers identify cardiac arrest patients, the dispatcher would locate available helpers through the app and send help. I believe that they will help us build a safer and more harmonious society. The Secretary said it is not necessary to train any AED users. My point is, even if we have enough AEDs, we need people to operate them. So can you give us a timetable when will we have this app? Secretary. President, I thank the member for his questions. We attach a lot of importance to community preparedness. We have made reference to various places, including the mainland and our neighbors, in terms of formulating our publicity plan. In terms of FSD's emergency preparedness plan, it is very similar with the Save Alive program in Singapore. True, it is not identical, but the goal is the same. That is to help yourself and save others. We make reference to good practices internationally and also our local experiences, and we review our standards from time to time. Thank you. Mr. Lam Chun-sing. Thank you, President. Concerning the use of AEDs, it is crucial that frontline security guards and frontline construction workers know how to use them. Will the government consider adding these elements in QAS program for security guards and safety courses like green cards and work permits in closed spaces, or even the so-called blue card safety courses for working at seas? Secretary. Thank you, President. I reiterate that our slogan is anyone can use an AED and it is easy to use. So training is not necessary, but I agree that with training it would be better. We have uploaded a clip on how to use AED and how to perform CPR. On including training on AED in courses of other industry, I will study it. Mr. Lam Kwok, thank you. I'm pleased to see that after the launch of the AED program, the number of AEDs across the territory has increased. However, you haven't told us over the years how many people have successfully used AED to save a life and the number of lives saved. And has the government followed up on the users' experience of AED? Are they happy with the experience and what can be further improved? Now, when we see an incident or someone fainting on the street, the first instinct of a bystander would be to call 999 rather to go look for an AED. So when the FSD thinks that it is necessary for the bystander or the reporter to use an AED to perform resuscitation, will the FSD tell the caller to go find an AED somewhere and use it? Not everyone knows the existence of the care platform. Most people would simply call 999. So it seems that maybe we can work on the 999 workflow to save a life. Secretary, President, from a review by November 2022, the FSD has handled 600 out-of-hospital cardiac arrest patients, with 20 received AED resuscitation by bystanders, and 3 persons were saved. One incident occurred in a LCSD venue. The other two were at the premises of private organizations. Now, on our promotional footage, we do send the message that a caller should make a 999 report and another bystander should try to perform CPR with an AED. We agree that bystanders should call 999 immediately to get help. Thank you.
Government bills, first reading.